So, you want to revisit your nostalgic past? Allow me to guide you. Welcome to the ultimate Gen Z Nostalgia Iceberg. This awesome iceberg features hundreds of nostalgic things that most 2000 kids will fondly remember. This awesome iceberg was created by u/Silent Chatter on Reddit. I'm going to be adding a couple of my own entries into this, just things that I thought should be here. It'll be obvious when they're mine and when they're not. So in all likelihood, this will be mostly nostalgic to people born within 1995 to 2012. But first, just a quick word from our awesome sponsor. This video is sponsored by Vapor95. Vapor95 is your #1 spot for high quality aesthetic clothing and more. To me, so much of it feels like the clothing equivalent to just pure condensed nostalgia. I'm personally in love with this Mac Tonight design and these epic 90s/2000s 3D style designs. It's so cool. They've also got these really awesome custom Game Boys for sale, and also this really cool candle here. And probably one of the most unique items, they've got a CD mirror. Best part is, they're made to order and everything is sustainably sewed and printed, which is awesome. The selection of stuff they have is perfect for anyone into the 90s and early 2000s nostalgia, so if you're interested, you can get 15% off your order if you use my code in the description below. Thanks again to Vapor95. Starting off, at the clear skies, we have SpongeBob SquarePants. SpongeBob SquarePants is one of the most recognizable and iconic shows of all time. The show came out in 1999 and had an incredible first 3 seasons that still hold up very, very well to this day. SpongeBob is still airing to this day, but it's kinda gone downhill. The original episodes are some of the most memorable and nostalgic shows for most 2000s kids. Diary of a Wimpy Kid. Diary of a Wimpy Kid is a series of books created by the author Jeff Kinney. The first book came out in 2007 with many sequels following it. These books were the greatest back in the day, and everyone read them. There were 3 really good movies based off the books, and they were all super nostalgic. Minecraft. Minecraft and the content around it is some of the most nostalgic stuff out there to a lot of people. Everything down to the music, gameplay, and old sound effects, the YouTubers who played it, and the merchandise is just peak memories. Minecraft is a place in mine and many other people's hearts. It's still very popular to this day, but in kind of a different way. Roblox. Often compared to Minecraft, Roblox is a massive website where you can play games made by other users and make games yourself. The game had its first release in 2004, making it older than Minecraft. With an art style that's very reminiscent of Lego, the game attracted a lot of kids. The game was very different back in the day, and it was a lot more simple than it is now. Old Roblox is still really charming and nostalgic, and that's why it's here. Lego. Lego is definitely one of the most iconic toys of all time. With many different licensed sets, Lego has reached tons of kids, and the toys are just great. To me, some of the most nostalgic sets are the SpongeBob ones, the Star Wars ones, and Indiana Jones, and the often overlooked Power Miners. Wii. The Nintendo Wii was one of the most popular consoles of the 2000s. The Wii was owned by tons and tons of people, including people you'd never think would play video games, like your grandparents or your weird uncle. The Wii had so many iconic games that are fondly remembered by millions. The Nintendo DS. The Nintendo DS was basically the staple 2000s handheld console. Everyone had at least some version of the DS. Releasing in 2004 and being discontinued in 2013, the DS was owned by lots and lots of kids. Like the Wii, there are tons of super iconic games on it that'll make tons of people tear up upon replaying. Cool Math Games. CoolMathGames.com is a really iconic website that used to host Flash games. The site was often unblocked on school internet servers since it had math in the name, so kids could play it on the computers at school when all the other websites were blocked. To be clear, the website wasn't an educational one. There were some actual math games, but it was really more mini-clip style, just fun Flash games. The website is still around to this day, which makes me very, very happy. Grand Theft Auto. Grand Theft Auto, or GTA, is a series of open-world sandbox games where you can basically do whatever you want. The games are not for kids, in any way. They have a lot of inappropriate material in them, but regardless, lots of Gen Z kids ended up playing them, making them very, very nostalgic to some. There was also a big GTA community on the internet, so that also adds to it. Angry Birds. Angry Birds, I think I can safely say, is one of the most iconic and one of the greatest mobile games out there. The game was a simple phenomenon. With super simple gameplay and graphics, the game captured the hearts of millions and is super nostalgic to almost every kid who played it around the time. Toys R Us. This one hits close to home. Toys R Us was the greatest toy store out there. Being a magical place for kids to go, these massive toy stores had what felt like infinite aisles of toys and video games. There was really nothing like going to a Toys R Us and looking at all the Bionicle and their canisters alongside all the Lego and Star Wars figures, and it was great. Personally, I had a very special experience with Toys R Us since I grew up with the iconic Times Square location. This place had a Ferris wheel, a giant animatronic T-Rex, and even Willy Wonka's freaking chocolate factory. The place was just amazing, but unfortunately in 2015 the place was closed down permanently. Later, in 2017, Toys R Us officially filed for bankruptcy, closing all of its stores in the following years. Fortunately, Toys R Us is actually making a return. They plan on having mini stores and Macy's stores in 2022, so it's not over yet. Blockbuster. Blockbuster was the video store back in the day. Originally offering VHS tapes, the company branched out into video games and later DVDs. The stores were really magical in a way. The color, the smell of the plastic and popcorn, it was fantastic. It kind of had the vibe of a movie theater. The place offered overpriced popcorn and candy, which made the whole experience really special. Right over there used to be a Blockbuster store, which is the one I went to as a kid. Unfortunately, the company filed for bankruptcy after making some bad financial decisions and suffering through the 2006 recession. It was also a little hard for them to compete with a little DVD mail-in service by the name of Netflix. Over 1 million stores closed down, with the number of stores getting smaller and smaller every year. Now only one Blockbuster exists. It's still kicking in Bend, Oregon. With a documentary on it, and now recently opening as an Airbnb service, the place should stick around for a little while. There's still some licensed Blockbuster merchandise being sold, and I actually have some. Rage comics. Rage comics were a style of internet memes that were beyond popular back in the day. Some of the most iconic meme characters actually originate from Rage comics, like the Troll Face and the Wojak. The comics and their art style are very nostalgic to those who were around on the internet back in the day. Icarly. Icarly was an old Nickelodeon sitcom about a girl who started a famous web series and had to adapt with the fame and keep the content going. It started airing in 2007 and stopped in 2012, and the show was super popular with tweens back in the day, and so it's very fondly remembered by millions. Nye The Science Guy. Nye The Science Guy was a very iconic children's science show hosted by the titular Bill Nye. The show was often shown in schools, which exposed the series to a ton of kids. So for many, Bill Nye made learning a fun and entertaining experience, which makes them look back on it very positively. The Magic School Bus. This was a book series and animated show, which, similar to Bill Nye, made education fun. The Magic School Bus was often a science-based show, and it was a ton of fun to watch as a kid. Shrek. Shrek was one of the most iconic movies of the 2000s. With an all-star cast and edgy anti-Disney humor, the film series was a smash hit. There was tons of merchandise of it, and sequels, and spin-offs, all that stuff. Shrek is really such a 2000s thing. It ages well, but you can really tell when it was made. Phineas and Ferb. Phineas and Ferb is an extremely popular Disney Channel show about two boys who do very extravagant things every day of their summer. The show was beloved by audiences for its creative set pieces and characters. In 2015, the show was cancelled to the dismay of many. Old Windows operating systems. This one is pretty self-explanatory. The old Windows operating systems were very charming and retro. The glossy, outdated look alongside the sound effects and built-in screensavers bring back many to simpler days. My family's always been a Mac family, but even then I have a lot of nostalgia for classic Windows operating systems, probably mostly Windows XP, since they were very commonplace in New York libraries and museums, so you could just kind of use them and there was a bunch of preset educational games on them. Pokemon. Pokemon is a series of video games, a bunch of different anime, and a trading card game. Featuring often cute monsters who battle each other, this game is beloved by children all over the world, and it still is. I personally played Black and White 2 on the DS and I loved it. I also remember watching the original anime series and having a massive crush on Misty back when I was 10. Captain Underpants. Releasing in 1997, Captain Underpants is a series of kids' books about a silly superhero who's always wearing underpants. The book was beloved by kids and is still pretty popular to this day, with the movie releasing only a few years ago. The Amazing World of Gumball. The Amazing World of Gumball was an animated series on Cartoon Network that was genuinely pretty good. The show had a lot of kind of edgy jokes in it, and legitimately funny storylines that made the show special. The art style was also really cool, featuring 2D cartoon characters living in a mostly photorealistic world with a bunch of side characters that were often in different genres as well. The show was unfortunately cancelled in 2019, but made a return in 2020. Temple Run. Temple Run is a classic mobile game where you played as an Indiana Jones-style explorer running from these creepy ape things. The game was basically an endless high score based thing, and it was a lot of fun. The game got some sequels and an arcade port, but it's kind of fallen off in recent years, but the game is still very fondly remembered by many who played it back in the day. Plants vs. Zombies. Plants vs. Zombies is a video game that is exactly what it sounds like. You plant plants on your lawn who defend against hordes of cartoony zombies. The game is insanely fun and has an amazing gameplay loop that is really timeless. Unfortunately, the more recent PvZ games are more freemium, pay-to-win style games, with the original still on the Xbox for only $5. I think it's also on Steam too. So if you want to revisit your childhood game untouched, then that is the way to go. Five Nights at Freddy's. Five Nights at Freddy's is one of the biggest horror games of this generation. I personally was a huge fan of it back then, learning about it pretty early on, only about a week after the game was released. I even made a video allegedly showing a real-life Freddy Fazbear's Pizza restaurant I found on Google Maps.
Here it is. Uh-oh, help wanted. So this is real, Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. This is real.
My Little Pony. My Little Pony, specifically the show's most recent incarnation, Friendship is Magic, was an extremely popular show with kids and grown men. For whatever reason, the show had a really wide appeal and tons of people loved it. It was all over meme culture back in the day and it was inescapable, which if you were a fan was awesome. If you weren't, then that kinda sucks, but regardless, the show was super nostalgic to tons and tons of people, including myself. I used to be a brony back in the day and I even went to a couple brony cons. Yeah, it was weird, but it was a lot of fun. Annoying Orange. Annoying Orange is one of the original YouTube titans. Created by a man named Danebo, the show was a parody of overly annoying kids shows, but it gave it a dark twist with the character often getting chopped in half with a knife at the end of the videos. The Annoying Orange blew up and got itself a TV show on Cartoon Network and even some toys. I personally wasn't a fan of it back in the day, finding it unnecessarily gruesome towards the other fruit, and I even made a video where I killed the Annoying Orange.
Hey guys, it's me, the Annoying Orange. And, today, I don't know, I'm just here and my eyes turned red.
You know what you need, annoying dude?
What?
Knife.
Pixar Movies. This one is super self-explanatory. Pixar films are some of the greatest animated movies you can get. Most of them are truly incredible films. Hell, my favorite movie of all time is WALL-E. It's super nostalgic. I'd be surprised if there are people watching this who don't have nostalgia for the original Toy Story, or just Toy Story in general. Pewdiepie. Pewdiepie needs no introduction. Formerly the most subscribed person on YouTube, Pewdiepie has been making videos for millions since 2010. His older videos are a time capsule of the early 2010s and are very classic. Flash games. Back in the day, there were tons of online video games made using Adobe's Flash software. There were millions of these, and lots of them were very nostalgic to so many people. Unfortunately, in 2021, Adobe stopped supporting Flash, meaning that most websites hosting the games wouldn't be able to play them anymore. There's still ways to get them back, and Newgrounds has a way of playing them, which we'll get to that later. Jetpack Joyride. Jetpack Joyride was an old mobile game that was tons of fun. The game had you play as a guy named Barry who acquires a backpack and flies around a laboratory, picking up a bunch of fun power-ups along the way. The game was super fun and one of those old mobile games that's just good. Fruit Ninja. Fruit Ninja is another classic mobile game where you slid your finger across the screen to cut fruit. The game was simple but fun and very popular. One Direction. One Direction was an incredibly popular boy band beloved by most preteen girls in the early 2010s. The band's music was played all over the place, which makes listening to it nowadays very nostalgic. Rugrats. The Rugrats was a cartoon about a bunch of babies going on adventures, mostly in their imaginations. The show was beloved by kids of a bunch of ages, being one of the classic Nicktoons. This show was watched by so many kids, both Gen Z and millennials. PlayStation 2/3. The PlayStation 2 and 3 were the PlayStation consoles that were around in the 2000s. In fact, the best-selling console of all time was the PlayStation 2, so tons and tons of people had it, making it super nostalgic nowadays. The games and the graphics, all of it, it's good stuff. Jimmy Neutron. Jimmy Neutron was a CG animated comedy show on Nickelodeon that was really popular back in the day. Starting off as a feature-length film and later becoming a series, Jimmy Neutron has a really unique and dated art style, which makes it instantly recognizable. The show was cancelled in 2006, so this is more nostalgic to earlier Gen Z kids or millennials. I personally remember loving this show back when I was a little kid. The Simpsons. The Simpsons is a show that really needs no introduction. Being one of the most recognizable and high-quality cartoons of all time, The Simpsons was really something great. A lot of Gen Z kids might have been introduced to The Simpsons from The Simpsons movie, which released in 2007. Despite majorly going downhill, The Simpsons had a really fantastic first 9 seasons, and those first 9 seasons are just really good TV. Gamecube. Gamecube was one of Nintendo's most underrated consoles. Releasing in 2001, the Gamecube had some amazing games like Luigi's Mansion, Star Wars Rogue Squadron 2 and 3, and of course Resident Evil 4. The friendly design of the Gamecube makes it a very childlike console, especially considering the fact that it has a handle which makes it look like it could be a lunchbox. The The Gamecube was a really great console, and I think that Nintendo should re-release more of the games that were on it. Sonic the Hedgehog. This one is pretty self-explanatory. Sonic the Hedgehog is and was very popular with kids back in the day, and that's why it's here. Pogs. Pogs were a series of toys that brought the classic Milk Caps game into the current generation. Pogs were basically tiny little cardboard discs that you would stack on top of each other and use a slammer piece, which was made of plastic, and you'd flick it into the Pogs. The ones who landed face up you got to keep. These were a huge hit in the 90s and were played by a lot of kids. Rickroll. This is a classic one. So all over the internet, there's basically this little bait and switch prank that we've all put at least once. Basically, the idea is that you provide someone with something that they want. For example, if it's a certain YouTube video that someone wants to find, you can claim that you have the link, but then the link you actually provide ends up being the music video for the song Never Gonna Give You Up. This prank was named the Rickroll, off an earlier version of the same prank, where instead of Never Gonna Give You Up, it was a picture of a duck with wheels on it. Classic stuff. Asdf Movie. Asdf Movie is a super classic series of animated comedy videos on YouTube portraying simple little characters and a bunch of little micro sketches. The videos were beloved by so many people, including me. I even made a real-life parody of Asdf Movie 6.
I'm going to punch your face in the face.
No! You'll never take me alive. Didn't you tell me it was good for your eyesight?
You lied to me. Everybody do the flop.
Courage the Cowardly Dog. This entry is referring to an old Cartoon Network show about a cowardly purple dog who was often put in scary situations. The show had some genuinely scary things in it, which ended up being the childhood trauma iceberg. The show is generally looked back upon very fondly to those who watched it and has a lot of scary nostalgia attached to it. Book Fair. This entry is probably referring to those iconic scholastic book fairs we all used to go to. The book publisher Scholastic would host book fairs for schools where kids could buy a huge variety of discounted books. These are very, very nostalgic, and I'm not really sure if they're still a thing nowadays, but still, great stuff. Club Penguin. Club Penguin was a big online game where you played as your own penguin and interacted with other players. You could customize your home, which was an igloo, and you could adopt cute little pets called puffles. It was a lot of fun, and unfortunately it was shut down in 2017 and had a very sad final minutes. The game lives on in people's hearts, and those who played it will probably never forget it. Adventure Time. Adventure Time was an animated show on Cartoon Network that blew up and people loved it. The show was cancelled in 2018 but had a really good lifetime. Regular Show. This one's another Cartoon Network show that came out at a similar time to Adventure Time. Regular Show still stays alive in meme culture today with people reminiscing on the show and its characters. What was unique about it is that it wasn't really an extravagant cartoon, it was kind of more grounded in a way. And that's why people liked it. Creepypasta. Creepypasta is a genre of online storytelling that was super popular back in the early 2010s. Characters like Jeff the Killer, Slenderman, Happy Appy, and Laughing Jack, and many, many, many more scared kids quite a lot. The stories were really scary at the time, but nowadays they don't really hold up all too well, but that's totally okay. Creepypasta is beyond nostalgic for so many people, and that's why it's here. Flappy Bird. Flappy Bird was a super popular mobile game that released in 2013. It blew up for some reason. The game was extremely simple. You tapped your finger on the screen, which made the bird flap its wings. You directed it through Super Mario style pipes, and it was pretty much endless. There was a fake ending someone made of the game, where if you reached 999 points, you would encounter Mario. Of course this video is fake, but it convinced millions of people. Flappy Bird was taken off the App Store by the creator because he didn't like how addictive it became for people. The Lion King. The Lion King is one of the most famous and beloved Disney movies of all time. The film was watched by many, many Gen Z kids in their childhoods, and that's why it's here. Teen Titans. Teen Titans was an animated show about the teenage superhero squad, the Teen Titans. The show was really popular with teens and kids back in the day, and it was darker than your average superhero show, and that's why it's here. It lives on as a crappy and unfunny kids show nowadays. Chuck E. Cheese. Chuck E. Cheese is a chain of animatronic/arcade pizza restaurants that were really popular in the 90s and 2000s. The place was really fun, and I personally went there a lot in my childhood. Chuck E. Cheese has a lot of super nostalgic games, like that whack-a-mole game with the sharks, and that clock thing, and of course, the picture-taking game with Chucky in the car. Unfortunately, Chuck E. Cheese filed for bankruptcy in 2020, so we might not have this place for too much longer. Something that isn't really a thing anymore at these places was the animatronic band. Often kinda scary to a lot of kids, these animatronic characters were a really iconic part of this place. Doom. Doom is a long-lasting series of first-person shooter games where you very brutally slay demons. Since the game has been around for a while, lots of 2000s kids played it, and that's why it's here. Beyblade. Beyblade was, and is still surprisingly, a series of toys that were essentially cool, stylized spinning tops. The type of game had been a thing in the past, but Beyblade popularized it a lot to Gen Z kids at least. Essentially, you'd pull a little cord and then your spinning top would shoot out of this cord and then spin quickly. You'd find an opponent, and whoever's top would stop spinning first wins, and they would like clash into each other and stuff. I remember these being the biggest thing out there, and if you didn't have any Beyblades, you were missing out. I don't know if you guys remember this, but I have such vivid memories of going to playgrounds and seeing kids with those red Beyblade-like arena things. Just remembering this period of my life, which these little metal tops of the talk of the town is super nostalgic. Alright, that wraps it up for part 1 of the Gen Z Nostalgia Iceberg. Now, this is a series of like probably 4 videos, so if you aren't already, I'd recommend subscribing if you want to see more, just so you can be notified when the next one's out. It's gonna be a little while since I'm gonna focus more on Halloween related stuff since it's, well, October, but the rest of the episodes will definitely be out in the future. Hopefully this made you feel at least a little bit of nostalgia. And so with that, I'll see you guys later. Alright, enough with this happy-go-lucky nostalgia. Let's get back to some spooky stuff.